What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the WWE NXT Battleground live prediction show. My name, of course, is Ango, and if you're new here, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I break down all the latest and greatest happening in wrestling. I give you guys my takes. Sometimes you like them, sometimes you don't. And if you're looking for a reason to hate me, then today there's probably going to be a lot of fantasy bookings, so there is your reason. But we are talking about NXT Battleground because NXT Battleground is taking place this Sunday, and it's a little bit different this year because WWE is doing this inside of the UFC Apex, which smaller venue, I think a total of maybe 600 seats, maybe 600 seats. A lot more of an intimate crowd. WWE decided not to do this in a real arena. WWE decided to do this with their partners at UFC, and I'm actually really excited for this show. This card is stacked. I mean, they're introducing the North American Women's Championship, obviously the partnership with TNA. There is just so much that is happening. I'm super geeked about it. We also have an NXT Underground match. I'm very geeked for that. Ladies and gentlemen, this should be fun. If you guys are joining us live on YouTube, there's a couple ways you can support the show. If you guys want to drop a super chat, it guarantees that a question gets answered, or you could become a member as well. So super chats, memberships, whatever it may be. If you guys choose to do that, it's definitely not forced. You definitely don't have to, but if you choose to do it, you are monetarily supporting the channel. So I do 1000% prioritize your comments, your questions, and things like that. If you are watching on YouTube and you can't support it financially, not a problem by any means. A really good way of helping is by simply just clicking that like button. And if you're watching live on X, the best thing you could do is just simply retweet this. It would definitely be appreciated. I don't know how to bring the chats in from X. Maybe I will be able to. I forget if there is an option, but I will try to throw up your guys' questions and comments and predictions on the stream today. Obviously, if you guys follow my channel, if you've been following me for a very long time, I have been a big supporter of NXT and TNA for a very long time. Quick note, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but before the Ango show came to life, before Destination Pro Wrestling came to life, there was a time period in 2010, 2011 when the only wrestling company I talked about at the time was TNA. And then NXT came out in 2012, and I spoke a lot about NXT back in the day. I was a very big NXT fan. So as you can imagine, in 2024, to see two of my favorite brands come together in a partnership, it makes me excited. And I'm obviously going to be talking a lot about TNA today because I do think there will be more TNA involvement, especially at this show. Now that I got that out the way, hopefully you guys are all having a great week. It is Thursday. We're going into the weekend. I genuinely hope that you guys have a wonderful weekend. And I think we should just kind of kick things off with the first match of the night. I don't know what the match order will be, actually. So I'm just going to talk about this based on the order that I have it in. But I actually want to talk about the NXT Underground match. Shayna Basler versus Lola Vice. The NXT Underground match, we don't know what it's going to be like. We've seen these underground matches happen in the past with NXT or even WWE Raw Underground. I like the concept. It's very similar to what we have seen with Josh Barnett's Bloodsport in GCW. Speaking of Josh Barnett, he, as well as Roxanne Modafferi and a few other UFC talented fighters, appeared on NXT this past Tuesday when breaking down the NXT Underground match. So obviously, as a fan of combat sports and as a fan of pro wrestling, I am very geeked about this match. Shayna Basler versus Lola Vice, to me, is going to be a very fun match. There are some rumors that WWE did internally pitch that this match could take place inside the UFC octagon, which, my God, if WWE were to pull that off, I would be very happy about that. Really, just because it's something different. You know, it's not necessary. They don't have to do it, but I do find it to be a really fun element to the show because it is already a stacked card. Why not try and surprise people a little bit bring a little bit of a different feel to the pay-per-view. I don't know how that works logistically based on the UFC Apex. I'm not sure if this is an opportunity that they can do, especially on the main stage, being able to fit the ring in and the octagon. I think that would be very difficult. However, if there is space in maybe another room inside the UFC Apex, you could just always move the camera crew there, have the NXT talent ringside like always. Who knows? But I am very, 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 very excited about this because Shayna Basler and Lola Vice are actually two combat sports athletes, right? Shayna Basler made the crossover from MMA to professional wrestling. She does exude a lot of that UFC MMA influence in her character and in her in-ring work. And Lola Vice, for those who didn't know, is Valerie Lareda, who was a rising star at the Bellator MMA promotion. Now, obviously, things have changed a little bit with Bellator because Bellator got bought out by PFL. Obviously, she joined WWE before that. But my point that I'm trying to make is that this is a pro wrestling fight between two people that have the MMA experience. And obviously, pro wrestling is scripted, but I feel like this could very well be the best NXT Underground match we have ever seen. Who knows what WWE does here, right? It's taking place at the Apex. This is crazy to me because I do want to see WWE just kind of do things a little bit differently here. And I don't know if maybe this would happen because it is taking place at the Apex, but maybe WWE can get like Herb Dean from the UFC to referee this match. Just try to add as much legitimacy to this match as possible. Try to make this feel like it is unscripted. Try as hard as possible to make this feel like a real MMA fight, right? There is no pinfalls. You're either going to tap out or you're going to be knocked out. And I think one of the coolest things about this happening at the UFC Apex is if they could find a way to kind of mimic what you would see in the UFC. Now, maybe it's just wishful thinking. And as I said in the beginning of the stream, if you guys don't like fantasy booking, you might not like my takes here, but I just think this show is so stacked that if you're going to put two people like this inside the UFC Apex, try your best to give it a little bit of a different feel from what we normally see. And this is the perfect match to do it. Now, believe it or not, I absolutely love both of these individuals. I think Shayna Basler in NXT is far greater than anything we have seen from her on the main roster. And it's really tough to pick a winner here because I also love Lola Vice. And part of me was thinking, man, Lola Vice should be part of a championship match at this point. She should be in the North American Women's Championship. At the very least, she should be doing that. Or maybe she should be feuding with Roxanne Perez. Now, it is very interesting here because Lola Vice and Shayna Basler are not only two really good athletes, but both of them could be a really big part of the women's division in WWE. And this is not a matter of picking one over the other because I like one more than the other. I'm picking the winner here solely based on the fact of who needs it the most. And I think a lot of people are going to say that it's Lola Vice. But quite frankly, I think Shayna Basler, being a main roster star, should win this match. And I am going to pick Shayna Basler winning this match for the simple fact that I do believe WWE also thinks that she needs to win this match. Now, if Shayna Basler and Lola Vice pull off a really, really good fight, I'm not talking about a wrestling match. I'm talking about a good fight, right? Social media will be talking about both of them. And I want WWE to capitalize on the momentum of whoever wins here. And realistically, they can do that even if Lola Vice loses, right? You can have Shayna Basler win, get back to Raw, continue to do her thing with Zoe Stark, perhaps maybe break them up. I know that might be a weird, interesting take, but Shayna Basler should be winning singles matches. Shayna Basler should be at the top of the women's division on the main roster. And I just personally think that if you're going to have Lola Vice lose here, it's not a big deal because Lola Vice could always bounce back. I think this is one of those situations where I genuinely am excited for this match. And I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to have too much wishful thinking, but it is NXT Underground. It's taking place at the Apex. let's get some of that UFC influence on here and let's see how they go about it. All right. We got a couple super chats and a couple shout outs, so let's get into it. Bianca says, thank you for covering NXT. NXT has been consistently good. I have been hooked since last June. Bianca, thank you for the $4.99. I agree. I cover NXT because I actually enjoy NXT. I feel like NXT right now, and I'm not one to talk about viewership and stuff, but there is a reason why NXT is becoming popular again. There's a reason why NXT is slightly challenging AEW right now. There's a lot of momentum on NXT's side. It seems like they're firing on all cylinders. And this past week when I reviewed NXT, I talked about some of the things that they're doing very strongly. And one of those things that they've been doing very strongly is the fact that they are getting a lot of people on TV. Everybody has direction. Everybody's getting a chance. They're being given a chance to show their personalities, being able to show what they could do in the ring. And in addition to that, none of it is happening forcefully. The women, the men, the tag team division, I mean, just everything is equally being presented as a big deal. And these are things that I felt like maybe, just maybe, it could lead to a bigger and more revitalized NXT brand. And sure enough, that consistency is starting to pay off. We've been talking about those things for years now. Really, since NXT 2.0 became a thing. But now you're starting to see how it's all paying off. So, of course, I'm going to cover NXT. It is one of my favorite shows on a weekly basis. I have, I have my criticisms as well. But for the most part, there is far more positive about NXT than negative. Bianca, thank you for the $4.99. VJC1618, member for 6 months. I think Shayna had a couple of fights in the UFC. Yeah, I mean, Shayna Basler, I could Google it right now. I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm the biggest UFC fan in the world, but Shayna Basler, obviously historied UFC fighter, MMA fighter. Shayna has a lot of history in MMA. And obviously, when you factor in the people, like, for example, Ronda Rousey was somebody who came from UFC, a far greater name than Shayna, and her run was not as positive. And I think Shayna Basler's kind of been sticking around doing things with the WWE, and sometimes it's not the best booking, or sometimes it's not handled with the best, but she shows up to work, she does a great job, and she's one of those people that have made the transition from MMA to pro wrestling and does a really good job. And I look at her and Lola Vice as a very big part of WWE's future. So that's actually why I picked Shayna winning. I think they gotta book her on the main roster like they did with NXT. Thank you, VJC. RM dropping $1.99. Maybe Rascals take out Gallus during North American match. Oh, we're going to talk about that, my friend. I'll get back to your super chat once we get to the match, but I do appreciate it. Let's get right into it. So, yeah, the first match, Shayna Basler beating Lola Vice. I know it sounds crazy. Maybe WWE doesn't agree with me. I can understand that too. But I do want to move on to the next match. So with that being said, let's talk about Axiom and Nathan Frasier versus the OC, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson. This is actually one that's really hard to predict. This is a storyline that has a little bit of meat on the bone. And I think it's interesting because Axiom and Nathan Frasier, if you're visually looking at this from a perspective between visual, like height, weight, things like that. Like, logically speaking, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson should just go in there and beat the hell out of them. But the supersonic duo has the speed. They have a lot of abilities that I think will actually make this a very fun tag team match. Now, I know this is where things get tricky because I am thinking about WWE and TNA's partnership. And part of that tells me that there needs to be something that happens in this match that keeps Axiom and Nathan Frasier as the champions. Now, as much as I would want Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson to win the NXT belts, the reality is they don't necessarily need those belts. Right now, they are on SmackDown with AJ Styles, and it seems like that's going to be coming back into fruition. So for me, I'm going to make this very simple for everybody. Very, very simple. I think the champions retain. However, let's get into some fantasy booking because TNA has a really good tag team division, a very good one. And I think if we are going to build towards a Worlds Collide pay-per-view, and for the idea, just the idea, let's talk about the concept. If we are going to build towards that relationship, if we're going to build maybe not even a pay-per-view, but a crossover of some sorts, Axiom and Nathan Frasier versus the System would be a fun match. Now, there are other tag teams in TNA that aren't holding the belts. So, for example, ABC. Oh my God. Do you guys understand the level of Chris Bay and Ace Austin versus Axiom and Nathan Frasier? I just want to throw that out there, that I genuinely believe that would be an amazing match. I love that idea. I would also be absolutely ridiculously dumb if I didn't bring the possibility up of the Rascals. Now, the Rascals, Zach Wentz, Trey Miguel, awesome tag team. They're obviously not the champions right now. I know RM kind of brought it up in the super chat earlier. As much as I would love to see the Rascals compete against Axiom and Nathan Frasier, I don't think that's going to be very likely, but it would be very fun to see that happen. I also think I would be ridiculously dumb if I didn't even consider Speedball Mountain, Mike Bailey, and Trent Seven. So these are some tag teams in TNA that I would genuinely love to see cross over into WWE. And I'm just saying, if Axiom and Nathan Frasier retain the belts, you want to spice things up, Ace Austin and Chris Bay should be the first two. They should be the first two to go face to face. And I genuinely think, against all odds, I believe is June 14th. So TNA special event on TNA Plus. Imagine if we can use this tag team match as a way to set up a match for Against All Odds. I don't know, but there is an opportunity to start up some storylines here between TNA and NXT. But nonetheless, somehow, some way, I don't know how it's going to go down, Axiom and Nathan Frasier are going to retain. And I do believe that will be the last that we see of Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson in NXT. I see some people in the chat bringing up the Nemeth brothers. That is always a possibility as well, but I do have to bring up the point that Dolph Ziggler was in WWE. I don't know if he would go back as part of this relationship, so I don't want to speculate on that. But you never know. Anything is possible. Would it be fun to watch? Absolutely. Anything is possible. I do expect major surprises, by the way, at this pay-per-view, because I think some of it will lead to Against All Odds, and I do believe some of it could lead to Slammiversary, and I do believe some of it could lead to a Worlds Collide pay-per-view, which I think at some point, whenever it happens, I don't know, but it's inevitable. It should happen between NXT and TNA. So yes, my pick, Axiom and Nathan Frasier. Then we have the North American Triple Threat match for the North American Championship, excuse me. Obafemi is champion, and he's going up against Wesley and Joe Coffey. I love Obafemi. Love him. Fantastic talent. I also like Joe Coffey, but I really love Wesley, and him coming back from his injury. You never know what's going to happen here, but I'm going to make it quick and simple, because for this match, I think we are going to set up the Rascals versus Gallus. I do. I genuinely believe that we're going to get the Rascals versus Gallus at some point. Now, Zach Wentz used to be in NXT with Wesley. And it was always a shame that WWE wasn't able to bring him back. And there was a lot of controversies and a lot of things that were said and a lot of things that were brought up that impacted his career. Obafemi is going to retain in this match, and I do believe Gallus is going to attack Wesley. The way that I'm seeing it kind of go down, and bear with me, but I think Wesley is going to be the reason why Joe Coffey doesn't win. Wesley, this is going to be a very meticulous finish, but Wesley should be the reason why Joe Coffey gets pinned. Obafemi is going to steal the win. Gallus will come out and beat the living shit out of Wesley. They're just going to destroy him. But the pop will be so insane when the Rascals all reunite to make the save, and I think that sets up a 6-man tag. And to me, that is money. Absolute money. Obafemi's great. At some point, he should be in the World Championship picture. This is not the way to do it. Do not have him drop the belt back to Wesley. I want the feel-good moment. The Rascals all together, a reunion like that inside the UFC Apex, it just works out. And the best part is Trey Miguel, Zach Wentz, and Wesley, even though they're in 2 separate companies, man, they're incredible. They're incredible. All very talented people. So to me, it just seems like a no-brainer. It just seems like a no-brainer. Now, obviously, there's a million ways to go about it, but if WWE and TNA really want to pop the fans, you do it this way. Obafemi retains. Wesley has the Rascals. The Rascals, Gallus. Good old-fashioned. It's going to be fun. To me, I see money all over that. But obviously, the catch to that is Obafemi has to retain. I'm okay with that. But at some point, Obafemi should drop the belt and become the world champion in NXT. Which, it gets kind of tricky because we're going to have to talk about Ethan Page in a little bit. Would he come in as Zach Wentz or Nash Carter? David Decker, that's a great question. I would assume that he's going to come in as Zach Wentz. Because at the end of the day, he would be representing TNA. All right, moving on. We got the NXT Women's North American Championship 6-women ladder match. Oh, this one's good, my friends. This one's good. Now, no matter what, somebody here will be a new champion. Somebody here will be a new champion. So I like this for a variety of reasons. I like this match. Lash Legend. The improvement in Lash Legend since she first appeared on TV. Unbelievable. Fallon Henley. You guys know that if you watch my channel, you know how high I am on Fallon Henley. I would love to see her on the main roster. I think she'll be fantastic on the main roster. Mia Yim. Love Mia Yim. Love her. She is really, really good. She's really, really good. And the best part is her coming to NXT has kind of been a blessing because of the fact that on the main roster right now, SmackDown's women's division and the women's division right now in general is a little bit crowded. It's really hard for them to do something with her on the main roster as the focal point of the women's division. Jada Parker is also in this match. Part of OTM. Great talker. Still a little bit green in the ring, but she's improving. Great talker. Great with the mannerisms. Great with the attitude. She is somebody to watch for in the future of NXT. Sol Ruca, who I think at this point everybody knows will deliver a viral moment in this match. I'm just going to predict this as well. I think Sol Ruca will hit a soul snatcher off a ladder. And it's going to be freaking insane if she does it. She's crazy. She's incredibly gifted. The gimmick was so weird to me. It's like a surfer chick coming through and I remember when they put her on TV, I was just a little confused by what the hell they were doing with her, but she's somebody who has impressed me greatly. So I'm definitely excited about Sol Ruca being in this match. And Kalani Jordynne. Kalani Jordynne was in the Iron Survivor match. And I just remember how great she was. She's just good, man. All of these women are good for other reasons, but we have to look at the title picture and what they need. They need to have a very strong start for this division. So we could eliminate the heels, because I don't think they're going to kick off the championship reign with a heel. And it's tough to predict this because that really leads us to Michin, Sol Ruca, and Kalani Jordynne. The three baby faces in this match are all very, very good and should probably be the champion. So what I'm going to do is predict this. I am going to predict that Sol Ruca wins this match. I am going to predict that. As much as it pains me not to pick Mia Yim, which, by the way, I do think Mia Yim should win the belt. I do think so. I think she should appear on SmackDown with the belt, standing with the OC, with AJ Styles. I would love for Michin to win this match. I would. I'm just being honest. I really would. However, I think WWE is going to give it to Sol Ruca because, man, she has a bright future, and this is, as from a babyface perspective, not only is she just like talented in the ring and she's a likable person and stuff like that, which I think is going to be very important for them when crowning a new champion. But I do think Sol Ruca is somebody who will be sticking around in NXT for a little bit. I don't think they're, for as talented as she is, I don't think they're going to rush quickly for them. I don't think they're going to rush that quickly to push her to the main roster and stuff. So I feel like Sol Ruca is somebody who's going to be sticking around in NXT for a while. It's not a big deal. Guys, I think this match is going to steal the show, which is very hard because there are some really good quality matches. But yes, my pick is Sol Ruca. I think that's who they're going to give it to. My preference would be Mia Yim, but I do think they're going to go with Sol Ruca. And I just want to throw this up there. Mike says, I see this like Seth Rollins' inauguration title, Sol for the win. Yeah, I kind of see it that way. Because they want people to know how much they value Sol Ruca and how much they think she's going to be like really good in the future. That's the reason why I think that they'll give it to her. I don't think there's a wrong choice here, by the way. Like even Lash Legend, man. Like I think a lot of people are writing her off on social media, but Lash Legend is somebody I would definitely put the belt around. The only difference is she's a heel. And who knows? By my logic, they might not stick with that. But typically, when you're doing an inaugural champion, you try to have a baby face. That's not always been applied, but it is in this case what I think they'll do. So we'll see. We'll see how that happens. I don't know. You never really know. Do I see any TNA involvement here? No, I do not. I don't predict any TNA predictions in regards to this match. I don't have anything where I think somebody will get involved. Definitely not in this match. The next match that we have is Roxanne Perez versus Jordynne Grace. Now, I don't know the match order for this card, so let me just let you guys know. I don't know if this will main event, co-main event. I don't know if it's going to kick off the show. I don't know. It's really hard for me to tell you guys how they're going to go about it. But Roxanne Perez and Jordynne Grace being the main event would definitely not be a bad thing at all. In fact, I think it should main event because I do pick Jordynne Grace to win this match. Excuse me. Now, the reason why I say that, and I know this probably will not happen, and my prediction is probably wrong. I do, for the first time in my life, want to see the title being hot potatoed. And if you've watched my channel, if you've seen my tweets, you know I'm not a big fan of hot potatoing a belt. It is very, very, very rare where I think it makes sense. But I do want TNA to benefit from this partnership. So that's also a little bit of my bias here. I would love Jordynne Grace to win the title. Roxanne Perez win it back in TNA territory. And then they could do a rubber match at Slammiversary, which would be really cool. Or it really depends on what's happening with Julia, because the original plan was for Julia and Roxanne. Julia and Roxanne were supposed to wrestle. They're supposed to wrestle at Heatwave. Don't know if that's going to happen with Julia's injury, which makes it a little bit harder to predict. But I think if they have Jordynne Grace defeat Roxanne, you can easily have Roxanne win it back, and then you could do a third match at some point. And I do think we're going to have WWE involvement at Against All Odds. I think we are going to have WWE involvement at Slammiversary. I think we should have some TNA involvement at Heatwave, whether that's the Rascals versus Gallus. I don't know. But I can see them having some opportunity here to play hot potato. And the thing is, I'm okay with them doing it because it now forces WWE to put some of their talent on TNA television. I think this will be really cool. If it went down that way, I think it would be really cool, in my opinion. So my pick is Jordynne Grace. And that's why I would love to see this main event. Imagine a WWE premium live event where a TNA star wins the title to end the show. There's something about that that's fun. Something really fun about that. Sorry, I thought. My God, bro, you guys want to spam my chat? Give me a second. I got to mod the chat really quick. Sorry about that. With that being said, we have Trick Williams versus Ethan Page. This will be the hardest match to predict. Harder than the women's match. Harder than the North American Women's Championship match. The reality is that Ethan Page... How do you book him losing his first match being a championship match? As much as I want Ethan Page to win this match, I think Trick Williams pulls it off. How they book it, I swear to God, guys, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know how they do it. Oh, okay. I like this. I like this. We're starting to see some good stuff in the chat. Ethan will win by DQ. You know what? If this is the direction that they go, they for sure can't. They for sure can't have this main event. They for sure can't have her win. Have her. They for sure can't have them main event this match. They got to have Jordynne Grace and Roxanne end the night. If Ethan's going to win by DQ, which actually makes a lot of sense, they could do some shit like that. Don't have this main event. I also like this too. This was a super chat from RM for $1.99. Ethan took out Noam. Noam will cost him. It also makes a lot of sense, but then it plays a trickery. there's a little bit of trickery here because you got to remember Trick Williams is a babyface. Noam Dar and the Metaphor are heels. It's a very complicated situation, but I could see this one as well. But no matter what, it shouldn't main event. If that's the plan, if you're going to do something like this, if you're doing something like this, it can't main event. You don't want no bullshit in your main event for NXT. Right now, the real talk is about TNA and NXT coming together. So have Jordynne win the title or main event in the main, have the main event match. Like low key, like I love Trick Williams. I love Ethan Page. I'm excited to see what happens here. I think this is a good point, obviously, with Noam Dar. The only thing is, I just feel like if you're main eventing and doing that, it's going to be very tricky. It's going to be very, very tricky. So don't overcomplicate this. You know what I mean? Thank you, RM, for the super chat. Phil says, I know Trick Williams is going really good right now with the NXT title, but if I were NXT, I'd put a freaking rocket on all ego. And I'm the same way. Like I genuinely love Ethan Page. And it's so funny because, man, as somebody who's been a longtime TNA fan, Ethan Page in TNA, Ethan Page in the North tag team with Josh Alexander, Ethan Page going to AEW and doing stuff with Scorpio Sky and Dan Lambert. And like, then he doesn't get utilized. And then he cuts the promo and has the match with MJF. Like, Ethan Page is so good. He shows up and now immediately everybody's talking about Ethan Page. Whether they were fans before or not, that doesn't matter. What matters is that people really like this guy. And I love Trick Williams too. But I don't want Trick Williams to be in a situation where the fans start to turn on him because they also love his opponent. So that's why this gets really tricky because of the Noam Dar situation. It also gets tricky because you don't want Trick Williams being the babyface winning with a heel group's situation. I mean, technically that could turn into a story with Trick and Lash Legend, where Trick now starts to get really upset with Lash because she's part of the Metaphor as well. This is going to lead to some sort of story. It's just a matter of how they're going to do it. I don't know. Very, very interesting stuff. Who knows at this point, man? Who knows? It goes back to what I was saying about the way the show ends. And I want to elaborate a little bit on this. You have the TNA partnership. People are talking about it. This is happening at the UFC Apex. It's a smaller crowd. The more shock value that you have on this show, I think the more the momentum continues with NXT. TV ratings look good. The brand, it's getting on fire right now. People are enjoying it. How you end the show is the most important thing. Hence why I think Jordynne Grace should main event and win. And like I said, you could have Roxanne win it back. Trick and Ethan Page, I think, will culminate at a later time. However they do the finish for this match, I do think it will be a scenario. I think it'll be a scenario where they, honestly, they'll run it back 2 or 3 times, and then it will eventually lead to Ethan Page getting the belt. It's interesting considering that Trick could be on the main roster. It's interesting considering Roxanne could be on the main roster. It's interesting that a lot of these people could be on the main roster. I mean, like, NXT is really, they're really doing their thing, man. Like, I don't know. But how they end this pay-per-view, it's got to be with a splash. I feel like for the most part, a lot of my predictions make a lot of sense. I feel like Trick and Ethan Page, I think we saw some really good stuff in here. Maybe Ethan wins by DQ. Which, keep in mind, Ethan Page, I mean, he's already got a little bit of beef with the general manager. So I could see that turning into a thing where he loses and he starts his beef with her, and who knows? One of the things that I'm seeing in the chat is Julia. And I brought up Julia earlier. You know, she got injured. How does that impact the plans? I don't know. I don't know how that impacts the plans, but I do know with Julia, it makes a lot of sense for her to run it back with Roxanne. Or not run it back, but to run it with Roxanne. But I feel like we have a little bit of time until then. So have Roxanne beat Jordynne Grace. Or I'm sorry, have Jordynne Grace beat Roxanne. Roxanne wins it back. Jordynne Grace loses it eventually at some point. You have Trick and Ethan Page. Let them do their thing for a little bit. Like, a lot of these storylines aren't coming to an end just yet. But I think a lot of things are realistic. Right now, the momentum's hot. A lot of people are enjoying NXT, and I think part of that is because of the fact that they've really had a plan and stuck with it, and like they're firing on all cylinders, you know? So yeah, a lot of TNA involvement. I see a lot of things happening. I know some people have asked me, they're like, well, what about Moose? What about the system? What if they just simply invade NXT? You know, I wouldn't be mad if they decided to interrupt Trick and Ethan Page. Low key, I kind of would like that too. I'll just throw that out there. If the system all came and took out Ethan Page and Trick, that could be really fun too. Who knows? Ladies and gentlemen, NXT Battleground taking place this Sunday at the UFC Apex. I'll be live for a post show. If you're a content creator and you want to talk about the show after it goes off the air, we could simulcast between our channels, or you could join me. It's up to you, whatever you want. For everybody who dropped a super chat or became a member or something like that, I appreciate you guys as well. For those of you joining us on X, I appreciate you. For those of us joining us on YouTube, I appreciate you. If you haven't clicked like on the stream, please feel free to do so. Try to keep this stream nice and short. It's the afternoon. I know you guys got to go back on your lunch breaks, or, you know, whatever it may be. So we'll call it a stream. But I appreciate you guys. Should be a very fun show. If you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord. If you're not following me on X, get on X. And if you fucking hate my takes, just understand we ain't going nowhere. I'll see you guys Sunday, NXT Battleground live post show. Thanks for watching. Peace.